Okay. Hi, everyone. So, really wanted to do a live call with you guys today with my girl, Kim Walsh, who's going to be having a conversation with me about nutrition, but the tech would not let us be great. So, what we're going to do is still go ahead with our conversation today, more of like an interview style, where I'm going to be bringing up some of the things that you guys already brought up in the group. So, thank you so much. If you have any other questions below that come up from this live, Kim is now part of our group. Go ahead and drop them below and we'll answer them in the comments. And if need be, we'll create another video or go live separately, which seems to be the best thing that we can do right now. So thank you so much, Kim, for hopping on and for bearing with me with these technical difficulties. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I know there's so much change, and it just seems like it never ends. But
It never ends. Like Facebook
I'm
is
glad we
always
figured
up to
something out.
something. Yes, 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 yes. So Kim and I met recently by way of a mastermind group that we are part of called the Get Amp Mastermind. And what's really awesome about this group is that it is a group of 24 now women who are all within the health and fitness field. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have Kim on is because I want you guys to understand that just because we're both working in health and wellness doesn't mean that we serve the same audience, doesn't mean that we even teach generally the same skill sets. Like, we are all different and unique in what we have to serve. So it's really good to bring in outside opinions and get outside expert information, like when it comes to talking about the vast topic of nutrition. So I wanted to bring Kim on today to have a conversation, teach you guys some general things about nutrition 101, as well as to really get into how you're going to slay nutrition while we're in the current quarantine state. So Kim and I first met in February in
Yeah.
Arizona. She is live with us today, or on video with us today, from Virginia Beach. So we're not too far from one another, because if you guys don't know, I'm down here in Maryland. And so I'm going to have Kim introduce herself, tell you guys a little bit more about what she does in the health and wellness space. And then we're going to get to some of your hot topics about nutrition.
Thank you. So, I'm Kim Walsh, and as she said, I'm down here in Virginia Beach area, Virginia. We've been quarantined for just about 10 days now.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's interesting. Every state is kind of moving at their own pace. So, I think now we're sort of becoming this blanket standard of just everyone's inside all the time. But I couldn't agree with you more. It's interesting in health and wellness that we all tend to fall under the same umbrella,
Mm-hmm.
but we seem to find, I call it our secret sauce in a certain area. So while I have the certification and the training to do like personal training and workouts, my passion and my jam is food and behavioral modification with regards to food and kind of whole body wellness as it relates to nutrition. So I love that you've brought me on and I can share some of my specialties, a little background information. I worked in education for 15 years.
Nice.
I have always been an athlete, and I decided I needed to take a break. I was doing education administration, mostly inner city school. So it was very emotionally taxing. And I kind of went through this space years ago where I was going through divorce. I was, working full time. I had a small child, and I just really started to notice some behavioral patterns that really inhibited my ability to have energy and be healthy. And I was also diagnosed with a thyroid disorder, which is just wrecks your metabolism. So I really felt compelled to become like my own advocate and just
Mm-hmm.
start researching and learning. And that sort of led me naturally into this sort of health and wellness industry. So I left education. And this is what I do. And I kind of feel like I'm still in education very much. It's just a different kind of classroom.
Exactly.
So I love to invoke the educational aspect and teach people about their body and about behaviors and about nutrition. It's just not in a classroom setting necessarily like a public school. And I love helping adults because I think adults need help. They need so much
Exactly.
help. I think we grow up and we go to school or we go to a trade school or we get a job and we're living life and we feel like we should have all these answers, but the reality is you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And there's such a stigma for asking for help
Mm-hmm.
in any regard that I think I love being able to reach out and connect with adults who I say are riding the struggle bus in some regard, whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
fitness, mental, social, emotional. So I started the company Warrior Forward, and it's based on the 3 pillars of mind, body, spirit of a whole body wellness. And so definitely my clients, we focus on exercise and movement, but we also focus on the cognitive piece of it. Um, the antecedent, the consequent of why we got in the state we're in, because I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really important,
Yep.
especially when it comes to food and nutrition. And then, just the spiritual side of it and knowing yourself well enough to know what your triggers are, what your release is, and how you can accommodate your needs personally. Because if you're not going to take care of yourself, nobody else is going to take care of you.
Yeah. Nobody's
So
here to
it
save
doesn't,
you.
yes, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't need other people. It absolutely takes a tribe, but you have to be your number one advocate and you have to be,
Exactly.
your number one fan. So that's kind of what we're all about.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. I'm you
Thanks.
guys like so excited to hear from Kim today because so many of what you all said, and now we're going to really get into that. But before we go down into the questions, one thing that you said that I wanted to come back to for people that might not be aware is what exactly do you mean by behavior modifications?
Good question. So as adults, we do the things we do based on how we grew up and how we develop as children, adolescents, into adulthood. And that's not new news to anybody that's been through any kind of basic schooling. What you learn and what has been modeled for you is typically what you look for in your life as an adult. And so when we look at things that maybe are not so positive, whether it's relationship with ourself, relationship with our partner, relationship with food, relationship towards fitness. When we look at those things and we recognize that there are some areas of improvement, what we have to do is really go back and look at the behaviors and kind of dissect
Mm-hmm.
why those behaviors impact us in the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that just comes from, it can be I say simple, but it's not, but it could be something as, that's just a bad habit and I didn't even realize I had it. And now I need to replace it with a good habit. Or it could be more serious and a little bit more work and very cognitive related, in that you've been taught a certain way and you need to reteach your body and your mind a different way.
Right.
So there's a lot of education. So, a lot of our struggles are very behavioral related.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to make long, sustainable change that you can live with fidelity, maybe not 100%, because we're not robots, but you can live with and continue to grow,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to address the behavior that comes with that change. Otherwise, it's just a temporary thing. And when it comes to food, that's why diets don't work,
Yep.
because we do something temporarily, but we don't really address the behaviors behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore we ultimately just revert back to our old ways.
Right, and along with that, even the behavior of consistently doing diets is another thing to address in its own
Yeah.
self, right there.
Yeah,
Mhm,
absolutely.
mhm. Love that. Thank you for clarifying. So, one of the first questions that we have, and this was from the Facebook group, is
Sure.
so Angela wants to know, how do you refrain from emotional eating? Now, what I want to add before we go into that, emotional eating from my training doesn't just mean eating because of sadness. Other emotions that could be included in that is anger, angst, anxiety, as well as happiness. Okay. And also the one that most people don't even think about, boredom. So I just want to clear that up because you might not say, well, I don't eat when I'm sad, but do you eat when you're bored? Do you eat for any and all emotions? If the answer is yes, then let's talk about it.
I love that you said that. I love that. Because the reality is, the society and the world that we live in, 95% of human beings have some aspect of emotional eating. And let me
Wow.
explain why. When we are celebrating something, what's the first thing people want to do?
Eat.
Eat. So it's birthday celebration, you have birthday cake, or you have let's go out to dinner, let's go out and celebrate. So even if you're in the most euphoric state of your life, you're
It's still a
still
choice.
responding emotionally to food.
Exactly.
And there's a whole other, host of vices. There's alcohol, there's, tobacco, there's sex, there's, whatever.
Hmm.
But with relation to emotional eating, I love that you acknowledge and that people understand that it doesn't necessarily have to be just I'm a depressed eater.
Right.
And a lot of people don't look at food that way. As a society, we look at food as something that's in an abundance and
Hmm.
that we can use to fill a void,
Right.
or use to celebrate. So I think emotional eating, you know, I'll back up a bit. When it comes to emotional eating, the first thing that people as individuals need to do is take stock of their emotions.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, be aware of when they're responding.
Hmm.
And, how do you stop emotional eating? You don't. I mean, I know everybody's like, what? What did
Whoa.
she just
Mic
say?
drop.
but but
Popular
you don't
opinion.
yeah, you don't stop doing it because you would rarely eat, but you want to encourage more of a mindful eating.
Yes. Yes.
So it's okay to have a birthday piece of birthday cake if you're celebrating, but
Right.
be mindful about it.
Exactly.
So right now, I think taking stock of your emotions, and when you reach for the food, take a moment. I always do. I call it a 3 day observation, and
Mhm.
you can take it as specific or as general as you want. Some people actually write it down. Some people just kind of make a mental note. But for 3 days, live life as normally you would. And when you reach for something, stop and take inventory of what's going on, what happened just before, what are you feeling. It doesn't need to be deep and analytical, but it could be something simple as we sat down to watch a movie as a family and I reached for the bag of potato chips.
Right.
So then after 3 days, you begin to see the associations of um, maybe sitting down and watching a movie, or sitting down and doing a family activity and we have a snack, or my kids are annoying the crap out of me because we're all trapped in this house and now I'm having to educate them and all of these things. And so I go for a candy bar, or I go for the cookies, or my son never finishes the food on his plate, so I just eat it as I'm cleaning up in the kitchen. So
Mhm.
it's just really taking mental inventory of where the unnecessary mindlessness eating happens. Then you can kind of go back and look at it and sort of evaluate it. And if people need help kind of analyzing it, that's where you and I can come into play. But you just sort of start to make those connections.
Exactly.
Once you've done that, you can look at it and start to reroute your behaviors
Mhm.
because you're now aware of them, and reteach your body that it doesn't need something. And
Yeah.
so you become more mindful when it comes to eating. That can be tricky depending on how emotional you are. I mean, some people, they really genuinely use food like other people would take a Xanax. I mean, it genuinely, they get in a state of complete and total devastation or anxiousness. And that chewing and that movement is, I would compare it to me being stressed out and going to the gym.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of, euphoric freedom.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I always encourage people that are trying to develop new habits and be aware of what they're doing, be aware of their behaviors. Um, Always have water on hand,
Yep.
because what you can do is, if you're there you go, if you are aware of your behaviors and you have a bottle of water maybe next to the kitchen pantry, every time you find yourself walking to the pantry, unnecessarily,
Hmm.
you stop and you drink some water first.
Right.
For two reasons. Number one, a lot of times we think we're hungry and we're thirsty.
Exactly.
And number two, it gives you anywhere from 10 seconds to be mindful of what's happening and to decide, is this necessary or not?
Hmm. Hmm.
The other thing I encourage people is to have gum on hand or a mint.
Mm.
So our body biologically releases these chemicals when we feel certain feelings.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of it comes from more negative feelings. So we don't necessarily release this when we're in a good mood, but if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling sad, um, the anxiousness, the chewing will give you, you're able to release a little bit of that anxiety through chewing gum.
Hmm.
And then the mint, actually, in the gum, or even just the mint, if you're not a gum chewer, or you have braces or whatever, um, it's just like putting any kind of oil or peppermint on your body. It's the same concept. It soothes, it is refreshing. The air that you breathe in mixes with the flavor, which sends this signal to your brain that there's like a sense of calmness. So if you
Interesting.
feel yourself going for like chips or something crunchy when you're anxious, and that can be taken during that 3-day kind of inventory, is
Mhm.
what kinds of foods? I like the crunchy things when I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
I will go for the cheeses, the chips, because I like that noise
Hmm.
and I like the feeling of the crunch. So I always will, even a mint, you can crunch it,
Hmm.
but it sends a signal to your brain that it's a calming state, just like essential oils or
Right.
aroma candles or anything like that. So people want to curb emotional eating. It really starts with taking inventory of your emotions and
Exactly.
wanting to know um, how to how to resolve those issues. And you can't do that without looking at the behavior.
Exactly. Love, love, love that. Something that I also help my clients with when it comes to this topic is also to recognize, like, when you're in this inventory period, whether or not you're feeling compelled to eat or if you're actually hungry. What's
Yes.
cool is, like, there's a conversation happening in the health and wellness space that's really pulling back on this idea of, like, satiety. I think I'm saying that right, but, like,
Yes.
actually hungry and eating when you're hungry, not just eating because blah, right?
Yes.
Because you're working from home, right? And you need something to keep you, like, active and kind of
Hmm.
distract you a little bit, or
Yep.
like every time you take a break, you go get food. That might
Yes.
be a sign that it's a bit more compulsory than it's actually real that you are hungry, number one.
So true.
And then number two, so many of you all, and we're going to get a little bit into this, are not eating enough to begin with. So
Ugh.
no wonder that you're hungry and snacking throughout the day, which is our next
Yes.
topic. So let's talk about snacking. I had to pull one of my clients into the fireside chat this past week because she was snacking. And again, that's a conversation that I had with her. Is it compulsory? Or do you feel compelled to snack? Are you actually hungry? And one thing that I want you guys to understand, and this is like kind of like it's information that you learn in the field. Our bodies actually feed off of the food for up to like 48 hours.
Yep.
So today I'm being fueled like in this moment by what I had 2 days ago, right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
anytime, especially guys on the weekends, when you guys are like, kind of skipping meals or eating maybe once a day because you're so busy or whatever, it's no reason on Monday why you're dead hungry and you're snacking, and you're completely off track. That's because you were off track 2 days ago. So you really
Yes.
have to be mindful of that. I think that's some of the reasons why the snacking has been on such a high right now, because maybe when you're working your normal routine, you have breakfast at work, a lunch at work, a couple snacks in your desk. Like, it's all, what's it called? It's like all hands on deck right now because
Yep.
everybody's out of the routine. So that's some of the things that I've helped my clients with, just to understand, like, why are you snacking? Just like what you said, like, what's the rationale behind why you're doing it? If it's
Yeah.
compulsory, if you're feeling compelled to do it, that might mean it's not actually real, number one. But even with that, though, take all the crap out so you only have healthy options to go for, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And people respond to that. I mean, I've had to have that conversation and they're like, oh, but I have kids or whatever. So there's a few ways to go around it, and it just really takes thinking outside of the box.
Mm,
I have a certain area where the kids' food is, and then I have a certain area where my food is. If
good.
I'm not restocking the kids' area, I have no business being in there.
There you go.
So you have to know, again, you have to know your behaviors, your limits, what you can and can't do. One thing I will encourage with the snacking now that everybody's kind of home is I think we get into the habit, and we do it if we work outside of the home, because when we're home, we're in the evening. So there's like dinner, maybe an after dinner snack, and then we go to bed. But what's happening is every time we walk by the kitchen, we feel the need to stop
Yeah.
and go in there and shop around. Well, in the evening, when you stop 2 or 3 times, that's probably appropriate. But if you're there for 24 hours and you're stopping 24 times, now the wheels are off the bus.
Mhm.
So I think as much as it's possible when we are in this space to meal prep even more
Mhm.
so than you normally would.
Exactly.
Um,
You have all the time.
or have yourself a guideline and hang it on the refrigerator or write it on your bathroom mirror of these are the times that I eat.
Yes.
Number one, it helps create boundaries, and you're teaching your body when it's hungry. And
Mhm.
number two, it allows you to decide, am I really feeling hungry right now? It's 9 o'clock. I want a snack, but I'm not supposed to have one till 10. Am I hungry and I need to adjust my meal plan or talk to my coach about that? Or am I just bored, tired,
Right.
angry, aggravated, whatever? And so it really helps with taking stock of those behaviors.
Exactly.
But having some boundaries and some guidance, I think, is so important, because otherwise, I think we walk by the kitchen and mindlessly go in there and look
Mhm.
for something. I mean, I've had to do it with my kids. Like, if you're not in the cafeteria at 9:30 at school, you're not in the kitchen here. Like, there's no need. Like, we're eating at the same time.
Kitchen is closed, friend. Like, go.
Exactly. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
again, like what we're really getting into, especially when it comes to nutrition, is that so many of you all are not ready to make these kinds of decisions. And you need to be honest with yourself about where you're at, right? Which
Yeah.
is why I highly recommend working with a coach. What does a coach give you more than anything else? Freaking accountability.
Yeah.
Have someone to be accountable to, which inherently builds your own accountability and your self motivation.
Yeah.
Without that,
Absolutely.
you're going to continue to be on this hamster wheel and wonder why nothing changes. Nothing
Yes.
changes because you haven't changed, right? Because if you're
Exactly.
not willing to make a decision to say, I only eat at these times, you're still going to eat. You're still going to get the food that you want. And hey, maybe in those time frames, you can still eat the stuff that you want to eat, right? Depending on what your body type is and composition and everything.
Yeah.
Because you're probably either severely undereating or overeating because you're not working within a schedule. But if the schedule was there, you actually would get the results and feel a lot better about yourself and
Right.
actually start to build a level of discipline. Everybody asks me, I'm not consistent, I'm not disciplined. This is where it starts. It's a decision.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
And it's really, I always encourage my clients, it's very much a less is more.
Mhm.
Um, Babies don't run before they can walk. So if you're new to this whole thing, start small. Like, nobody said you have to do all 50 steps to be perfectly healthy and well by day 4.
Exactly.
So small goals are huge. If you just get yourself a water bottle, get yourself some mints or some gum, and do the 3-day inventory, and set a guideline for, I am going to be mindful and stick to my eating schedule or my eating plan from the time I get up until lunch.
Yeah. That's
Hey,
a great way to say
that's way better than not at all.
it.
And
Mhm.
then you build on that. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, you need to have a coach. Like, I would not go into, you know, an auto parts store and try and tell that person, as much as I may be a car lover, how to fix the car.
Right.
So you
Sure.
can do all the research and,
Mhm.
read up on all the people, but we have the education and the knowledge to be able to look at things a different way. Like you said, even though we do the same things, we learn from each other all the time.
Yeah, like
So
I've learned a ton from this video of different strategies that I can try with my clients.
exactly. So it's
Yeah,
important that everybody have some kind of coach, accountability, some kind of group, and engage,
exactly.
because it's when you don't feel like engaging and when you don't feel like participating is probably when you need it the
It's
most.
probably when you need the most.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, amazing. So thank you, Kim, so much. Oh my goodness, this was so great to connect and to
Thank
have
you.
real honest conversations about nutrition to give everybody a baseline and a basic understanding of what things are going on and how it relates to the context of what's happening. So drop any questions that you have below of topics that we didn't cover, and we'll go
Yes.
ahead and come back together and do another video for you guys. Thank you, Kim, so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm super honored to be here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. You too.
Bye.